I have jury duty that where I have to
Well,
call in for jury duty.
welcome
that
to the
week.
Trump Report. Now everybody knows that Tamra might have jury duty sometime in the near future. Doing your civic duty, she may not be with us in a future show, but she's here today, shirking the jury duty. No, it hasn't happened yet. But
I love jury duty.
I'm just starting to get a feeling that what courtrooms aren't what they used to be. They're letting just anybody walk in with any kind of frivolous lawsuit they want to file. So you know what? Maybe the justice system needs to get things in order. Welcome to the Trump Report. Still looking for a new name. Haven't found it yet, but that's a lot of what we talk about. So it's still an applicable name. I am Christian Bladt. Soon to be doing her civic duty, Tamra Brown.
How about like the Biden? What are other words for report?
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought we were just taking this hour to brainstorm. That was
if there was an easy answer, we would have it already. So, someone in the chat in recent weeks said the White House report, and I like the non-branding, but I don't know that that's quite it. But there's something to be said for not having to change the title. Also with us as always, the one, the only, the S-man himself, Scott Moore. In the chat, Andreas Froby with a hello from Sweden. Andreas, a very loyal viewer, and not in the chat, Storage Yard resident. So I didn't do a good job announcing when we were doing the show this week. That's on me. I did post the link yesterday, but you know what? Sometimes he's got to be out in the storage yard. In any case, it's always been an interesting week. Things haven't quieted down. President Trump wasn't really talking at all. He was playing a lot of golf, but then he did what any respectable world leader would do. Went on Facebook Live with a rambling 46-minute video, which was not live, by the way. It was heavily edited, and he was doing a lot of charts and stuff. And that reminded me, I don't know if you wasted your time watching things like this when you were a lad, Scott, but it reminded me when Ross Perot did these, he bought time on network television. There was a lot of charts and graphs, and it sort of took me back to that. And and then it made me feel sad because Ross Perot was such an interesting character on the political landscape, and got. I don't know. He got like 18% of the popular vote in 1993.
19%.
He didn't get any electoral, but that's such a huge percentage.
That's what ended up having Bill Clinton have a chance to win with only 43%.
Yeah. I know it's a great point. Tamra, did you feel like there was anything else that lasted 46 minutes that might be more worth your time? And did you stay away from the video? I'm going to be honest. I watched about a minute and I was like, what am I doing? Let me just read about it. I can't watch this.
A person that pops Adderall like it's candy, I'm surprised it was only 43 minutes. You have the concentration.
That's because it's not the director's cut. This was basically the highlights.
That man can ramble with the best of them. I would imagine just a couple UCB classes or some such. He learns a few yes-anding techniques, and he's got his one-man show a little bit more streamlined.
Do you think he could possibly get onto a Herald team?
I think it's possible. Yes. I think all of us here would agree that we would rather see him on a Herald team than in the White House.
Yeah, and I know that's a little bit of inside baseball, but it made me laugh to think about for anybody that's done improv.
I need a suggestion of anything at all.
Stealing the election. Anything else? I don't know. And it's just like, oh, this is crazy. I mean, but it not, just the right amount of crazy that Newsmax ran it and put the word live on there like the next day. So there's so much to basically boil down from that statement, but I firmly believe he doesn't believe any of this. I really don't think he does. I think that there's a part of him that just doesn't want to, but that he knows that he lost, but he knows he can make a lot of money off of this. And look, there's something to be said that like oh no, I'm not fired. I quit and I'm going to burn the building down on the way out. You know, he's like Milton in Office Space. You know, he's like, well, I'm going to burn the building down. And the fact that he's out there doing these things, you know, largely like not even half-assed, you know, like, I don't know, 2% asked, you know, I mean, it's, you know, like picking up your cell phone and calling Maria Bartiromo and like not doing an actual like interview, you know, it's like, you know, he like calls into these, I was going to call it these like press conferences that Rudy Giuliani holds at conference rooms at chain hotels. So I don't know, Scott, you know, when we sort of take specifically this 46-minute, basically this was like a 46-minute drum solo that, you know, it's like you have to really be a fan to want to sit through that.
Oh God. Yeah. I tried to do the same. I tried to watch it. And I didn't last. I don't even think I lasted a minute. Because it was immediately the minute he started, it was just,
yeah.
And the problem is that it was so undignified because it was in the White House with the presidential seal in front of him. And I'm like, okay, if you want to have your rants and everything, do it elsewhere. You don't need to be doing this at the office of the presidency. You're just continuing to debase that office. And it was so horrendous to watch, and it was so infuriating. And, you know, even his tweet about it was just idiotic. And in a way, it's like, I don't feel bad for the stupid people that are giving him money. I mean, if they're that stupid to give him this money for something that's futile, what is it? 1 in 43 cases now? They won 1 on a technicality out of 44, and they've lost 43.
And
I mean, so whoever's giving him money are idiots. And
then there's a fairly high profile lawsuit for somebody who has sued to get their, I think, $2.5 million back because they realized that, wait, this is how you're trying to prove voter fraud. And I think for a second, you can even take away somebody who really believes this and that they feel like they're helping this cause, because it says in the fine print, like, you know, we're not going to really use your money for this, right? We're going to use it to pay down campaign debt. And I don't know, you know,
and pay your his family. That's the problem, is that you can use this money for almost anything you want. Yeah. So there's virtually no strings attached. So the fact that people that are probably working very hard and have been suffering through the economy in the past 9 months, and that's been ravaged, are now giving their money to this entity that's now going to spend it for their own lifestyle and everything. It's just, it's so I don't feel bad for those people if they're that stupid to do that. It's just for him to play this game, like you said, when he knows that he's clearly lost. Also his ego, you know, there's part of that ego too, where he does not want to admit that he has lost or concede or do anything. So there is still some of that there, even though he knows deep down he's lost. He doesn't want to admit it to everybody, and he wants to keep his base. And this is a way to keep his control with the Republican Party, because you still see everyone tap dancing around him and not, you know, vocalizing like stop being an idiot, except for very few Republicans that are working, you know, like in Georgia, for instance, that work in the elections office and have some integrity. Anyone that's a politician is still too scared of him. And so it'll be interesting to see what he does tomorrow when he goes down to Georgia to this rally. How is that going to be? And is he going to be able to get those people to go back out and vote? Because you start to see that backfire a bit, where a lot of Republicans in Georgia are like, well, it's rigged. Why are we going to bother and vote? So it'll be interesting to see how he plays that, because you can't really admit that you've lost, right? If you're claiming that it's been rigged, but how are you going to convince people that it's not rigged enough to go out and vote? So it'll be, I'll be curious to see how he handles that fine line tomorrow, which is going to be interesting for sure.
Well, Tamra, tell me what you think. I think he's not going down there to try and motivate anyone to vote on January 5th. I think he's going down there because it's been a long time since, you know, he didn't, you know, so it's been a long time since he's been able to super spread. You know, it's been, it's been almost a full month now, you know, I mean, since election day. By that point, I think it'll have been a month, won't it? Yeah, because it was the 3rd. So actually it has been a month because today's the 4th. Yeah. So it's been a whole month since he's had a rally. You know, so I think this is just really, it's definitely all about him. And I think that the most damaging thing that Republicans are starting to realize is that you're telling people basically why should you bother voting on January 5th? Because look how messed up this was. what makes you think it's going to be any better? I don't know. I mean, do you think that on some level the Democratic candidates in these runoffs are like, yeah, keep telling them to stay home?
Sure, unless that there's any Republican supporters of Trump who are considering the fact that the down ballot Republicans won, and so maybe they're thinking like only the office of the president was the fraud, and my vote counts as long as I'm not voting for president. You know, I'm really reaching to try to give the Repub the benefit of the doubt there. So, yeah, you know, I don't, and then part of me thinks that they just don't give that much thought about it. You know, like it doesn't matter that he was telling them, you know, like they're not even, if Trump says vote, they're gonna vote. They have the memory of a fruit fly as to what he previously said. So that's kind of how things tend to go. It doesn't matter what he's told them before. This is what he's saying now. So if he's telling them to get out and vote, I think that's all that matters.
Right. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. And Andreas points out that Sidney Powell, who is not President Trump's lawyer, and she does not work for the campaign. She's practicing law independently on her own, despite the fact that she was introduced very publicly as being part of the Trump legal team. She said, don't go and vote. So when will Mitch know he's not helping it? But yeah, I think there is going to be a point, and maybe they are waiting for the certification and the Electoral College and all that. But I think you're going to have your high profile Republicans that are like, look, I know that you might be disappointed about November, but if you want anything, if you want any of the stuff that you believe in to matter in Georgia, you guys need to go out and vote for this. And I think that that's when people might sidestep what the president is saying. It won't be Mitch McConnell because, it's, you've never seen a gelatinous orb more obvious without a spine, so I can't imagine that it would be him. But he's the guy that's like, do you want to keep the fancy office with the with the nice chair, because it won't be hard for you to not have that job anymore. And not doing anything is not, I don't know. So it's interesting, but I think that that's not what that event is about tomorrow at all. And I don't think the events are the hearings, I don't think are about anything. There's one in Nevada that, as we're talking right now, the judge is considering it. And I think that when you hear about these cases, it's always something along the lines of, it's like, well, so then you need to decide to overturn the election. And that's what President Trump said. And even he, in his 46-minute video, he said that he doesn't think that people are going to listen, people are going to do this, but he's imploring the Supreme Court to overturn the election, basically. That's the no uncertain terms. And then when you try to do it in a court of law, that's why they keep holding these hearings, because in a court of law, there's consequences for lying. There's no consequences for lying on Fox News, and especially not on Newsmax, where 40,000 people might see you. But if in a court of law, you're like, oh yeah. But in the case in Nevada today, they say that they're convinced, like, here's spreadsheets and addresses of people who voted in 2 states, and I don't quite know how that they also voted in another state. I don't actually understand how but I mean, it's for the judge to look at. But usually it seems to be, the ones that Giuliani's in, it's usually like, do you have any evidence? No. But I do have this crazy Kate McKinnon character next to me who clearly, started day drinking at 11 a.m. If you guys happen to see that, I could not find that woman's name. I tried really hard too. It was just like, okay, so she's clearly not real. But even Giuliani was like, dial it back a little bit, So did you see the woman I'm talking about, Tamra? And if you haven't, that's your next TikTok. You might want to make a note of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm hoping that Kate McKinnon somehow plays that tomorrow on the new SNL. I was just, because I thought of her immediately, because I was like, it's this crazy one with the blonde hair. She's got these big oversized glasses, and yeah, I watched one of them on Twitter. It was like a 2-minute thing, and like you said, she was clearly day drinking or on something, and she was absolutely hilarious because she really made no sense at all. And I can't think of her name, but in one of the tweets I did see the other day, it did have her name. And
I've got it now. Now it's Melissa Carone, but that was not easy to find when I wanted it. And I mean,
who is she? Is she part of legal counsel? Or
she says she's an election worker in Michigan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, there's you can say anything you want in a hearing, I suppose. But I'm trying to at least show her off, but I don't quite know how well that's going as we're talking. So here she is, but and this is from People Magazine, and you can see it's probably going to be an ad now, so I probably shouldn't try and play it, but that's not going to stop me, is it? In any case. But it really speaks to kind of I still not even sure how hard they're trying is really what I'm getting at. When like it's all these star witnesses and smoking gun videos, and anyone with like a legal mind who looks at it, Scott, is just like, yeah, what could you why are you still wasting our time with this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
There was a whole thing about that too. About essentially that Jenna Ellis and Giuliani should be taken to task for doing these sorts of things, because there is a point of filing frivolous lawsuits that can be an issue, and so it's not quite to the extreme of them being disbarred, but definitely they should be taken to task for this. I don't know what the legal term would be exactly, but it is true, because all they've been doing are filing
in the penalty box.
Yeah, they've been filing all these frivolous lawsuits, and at some point, it's beyond the pale, because now you're wasting judges' time, you're wasting courtroom time for something that is not going to go anywhere, and it's idiotic beyond that. So it's like a lot of things where when lawyers do file a lot of these frivolous lawsuits, that over time it becomes an issue, because that's technically not how you should be using the courts and clogging up the courts for your own, spectacle that they're doing right now.
Yeah, I don't quite understand how, Giuliani's not licensed to practice law in a lot of these states that he's spoken in. They made the exception, like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago in Pennsylvania. But at some point it's like, why are you letting this guy talk?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you make them hire somebody that can practice law in the state. There is a team in Nevada who was there presenting this case today. But I don't quite know what they expect will happen. I think that they just feel like if they win one of these, then everyone is going to feel like, oh, all right, well, then obviously we have to as well. But you talked about Georgia election officials before, and they've been very outspoken, including it's always worth mentioning the Republican governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, who has been disparaged by President Trump, as it has the Republican governor of Arizona, Ducey. So all of a sudden, these are, it's like this idea that, Hillary Clinton talked about the vast right-wing conspiracy. So President Trump feels like there's this vast left-wing conspiracy that has now engulfed the right and also, everyone. And one of the points he continually makes is, how could all of these Republicans done well except me? But it's because you're you, and people didn't want to vote for you. I mean, 73 million did. I'm not saying that, but in these states, there's a lot of people who are like, well, yeah, I like all these guys and gals who take care of me. I'm going to vote for them, but I'm not voting for that guy.
Wait, has Trump acknowledged that other Republicans won and just not him?
Yeah, he said that. He said that Republicans that's one of the fundamental points that they're making, is that the down ballot races, and I mean, look, it's phenomenal what Republicans were able to do in the House.
Mm-hmm.
How many seats that they picked up where, it took a little while, but they had to, you weren't sure at first that the Democrats were going to hold the majority in the House, and they have it by like 5 seats, I think. And I think there's still 1 or 2 pending, which that boggles my mind that we still don't have answers on some of those. And I guess there was one where it was decided by like 6 votes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and another by like 13. And I know New York State is just getting their stuff certified. Like numbers were coming in this week and into December. So, like they were saying, if New York State was a swing state, it would be crazy if you were waiting on it all these weeks later for them to get those numbers in. But that's what pushed Biden over the edge to 7 million. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that's what he's based his fraud claims on, was like, how could all these people go vote for other candidates down ballot and not vote for me? And the other thing too that people forget, and it's not a huge number, but a lot of people just went in and voted for president and walked away. And they didn't do the down ballot portion, which they should have. So you can see in some states, numbers are a lot lower for some of those down ballot races as opposed to the president. So, I mean, again, it's idiotic to even claim that as a basis, because some of the Republicans are good. And yes, look, Republicans did better than anyone anticipated, not just in the House, not just in the Senate, but in some of the state houses, like in New Hampshire, for instance, which again went heavily for Joe Biden. They now have a solid Republican trifecta in their state house, and they reelected their Republican governor by a wide number. So they did do better than anyone anticipated. However, and in Maine, for instance, too, major ticket splitting. You can see that a lot of people still stuck with Susan Collins, but voted for Biden. Which we've talked about in the past on the show. Ticket splitting has become more of an archaic thing, and still overall it's rare, because when you look at the states and you see, who voted for the senator, who voted for president, normally those match. The only one where it did not match was in Maine, but every other state still it matched. Whoever you voted for senator, you also voted for that candidate, and those candidates won both in those states. Obviously, Georgia's still TBD, but everywhere else you look. So. Ticket splitting is still rare, but it does happen. And we saw Biden really didn't pick up votes in the urban areas as compared to Clinton. He picked up the votes in the suburban areas, which have been a big Democratic pickup going back to the midterms in 2018. He really swept those suburban and some of those ex-urban areas away, and did much better than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. So that's really where he can claim of where he got his wins from, were those suburban, ex-urban areas. He actually lost votes in New York City, for instance, as compared to 16. He lost votes in a lot of the big urban areas, and then you saw the Hispanic vote in a lot of areas went way down too, in South Texas and South Florida. But he won in the suburban areas, and that's where Trump did horribly. And we've known that since the beginning of time, since 2018, that he was losing those areas, and that's exactly what happened. So it's not a mystery, it's not a surprise, it's not fraud. It's just the way people did vote this year, and like you said, it could switch again in 22. So a lot of those people could come home again. A lot of those suburban voters may go back and vote Republican in the midterms this year, or in 2022. Yeah, it's not a surprise.
Yeah. So, but back to the earlier point, Tamra, sort of this idea that, now the ire is being directed at Republicans, many of whom, because there's always a tweet, people are very quick to point out anytime that, like the Secretary of State in Georgia is someone that he endorsed. So that tweet endorsing him has come back out when you talk about, how terrible he is. So, and he obviously endorsed Brian Kemp in Georgia. So the fact that it's not just like all Democrats are bad, what how damaging do you think it is, Tamra, that it's like, well, now it's just, now it's just anybody who isn't doing what he likes is clearly fundamental. It's their fault that the democracy is unraveling from President Trump's narrative.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as the Republicans that are ranting against Fox News now, and how Fox News was the first to call certain states that they didn't feel they should have called so early, like Arizona. You would think that some of these hardcore Trump supporters might self-examine and be like, why is anybody that says anything negative about Trump they're the one that's automatically wrong. When people on your own team, when people who you regularly agree with, who are on your own team, are suddenly saying what everybody else has been saying, there's got, there at a certain point you have to recognize the common denominator. So I don't know how.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you're seeing a lot of it, and I see it from people I follow on social media, some of whom I've muted for a little while, but that it's like, well, what happened to Fox? They're so unfair to the president now, and then you have to go further, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe how terrible Tucker Carlson is, and I'm just like, how many years did you spend? Like, this was the guy where you went to
Your
for,
guy.
yeah, I mean. Look, Hannity's still in the bag. I mean, that's not going to change, but just hypothetically, if he did, just imagine, but I mean, he's like, he's got like some personal relationship on Trump. I think, I don't know that Sean Hannity's ever done anything wrong, but if he did, Trump would know about it. But it's just like when you're saying like, oh no, I can't go to the place that I think I trust for my information. The Drudge Report. Now the Drudge Report did get sold at some point, but but that's something that people don't count anymore. They disparaged the Drudge Report. Keep in mind, of course, that the Drudge Report is an aggregator of headlines. Now, they write their own headlines, and they're very slanted for sure. And Matt Drudge has no fondness for President Trump. And that's very apparent. But it's just linking to other articles at other places. So it's not even, like the commentators, the content providers for the Drudge Report. The only content they provide are headlines that they reword and what they choose to highlight. So the fact that the echo chambers have gotten so small, I mean, just production values alone, like, do people really feel like Newsmax is where they should get their information? I mean, they gave a contract to Sean Spicer. They give him money to go on television and talk. Sean Spicer, come on, the guy was on Dancing with the Stars, like not that long ago. Come on, and this is sort of just something that it's just like you don't like what people are saying, so clearly you have to throw out everything they've ever said before because you don't like where they stand on this one issue. When in actuality, it might be that, like you said, Scott, the common denominator is President Trump. And you know what? Maybe I should think for at least a minute if Tucker Carlson says that, Sidney Powell should show some evidence because these are serious claims. And, the way that people dragged him over the coals on the right, because it was like, well, how dare you? Was like, how dare they think that this should be okay for everyone? That just because you say something, you say something on Twitter, if you're President Trump, just because you rent out a conference room at a hotel and you say something there and you call it a hearing, but it's really just a meeting. There's, no one's sworn in, no one's under oath. You just say anything you want. That it really is like getting your improv group together.
But to be
those Giuliani hearings. Yes, Tamra.
Think of all the people on the left who think that Obama cannot say a negative word about Obama, cannot acknowledge anything wrong that he did. So it's, I'm just pointing out that it's not strictly a right-wing thing to, pick your team and defend that no matter what. If anybody criticizes, if anybody criticizes your candidate or person, then they're automatically wrong. But I think it is more prevalent on the right, I would say.
Look, I mean, it's the same thing that it's like if the only source you have for news is MSNBC morning, noon, and night, you're going to create your own echo chamber, and what I will say about people who don't want to disparage President Obama never tried to steal an election that he lost. So it is a little bit different, but you're absolutely right, sort of for the big picture stuff. And, there really isn't, look, it would have been great if CNN had existed as this middle ground of like, we're just going to do news, but then people don't tune in and want to see that. So you still have to be opinionated. But if, because I would say MSNBC and Fox, although, look, Fox has lost that cachet among conservatives. They're like, well, no, I can't trust that anymore. So I have to go to Newsmax and Breitbart, and Steve Bannon's podcast for all of my information. What were you going to say, Scott?
No, I was going to say that's exactly right. Like, Tamra, you're 1,000% correct. It is on both sides, and we see that. But again, the difference is the blatant lies and the things that people are and it's dangerous to democracy when you start, because what is it, like 70% of Republicans now believe that the election wasn't fair or that it was rigged. So when you start spreading these lies, it becomes dangerous to our own foundation of democracy and to our very principles of who we are as a country, and to have a peaceful transfer of power. So it goes beyond just a support of a candidate. And this is the same person who denigrated President Obama and, you know, said for years that he was not born in the US. And when you just come up again with these blatant lies, that's a bigger difference than just supporting your candidate, which of course everybody is guilty of that. And everyone is guilty of being able to have their own echo chamber, which is why it has become as dangerous as it has with politics, because now you can go into your little corner and sit on your keyboard all day and type away and have no repercussions and never have to speak to anyone that doesn't agree with you in your own little bubble. So it is incredibly dangerous, but what they're doing is wrong. And that's why it's been great to see some of these Republican state officials standing up to that. Because again, it's personal for them too. This is what they're working every single day. I mean, it's not just on elections every 4 years. This is their job. This is their home state. You know, so when they're completely trashing on it, like Trump has done, it's a personal thing for them, because this is what they are dedicating their lives for day in and day out. And to make a baseless claim that there's fraud, because at the end of the day, does Brian Kemp, does Brad Raffensperger, does Doug Ducey really want to see their states going to Joe Biden? Of course not. But they know at the end of the day, this is their home state, and they have to work within the rules, and they know that these states were tight. So it just comes down to, you know, a dangerous thing. And it's been refreshing actually to see a lot of these Republicans stand up to that, and the Michigan officials as well, that didn't fall for Donald Trump stuff when they went to the White House. I mean, it's very important to see, because if they were able to be slightly skewed in a different direction and they allowed some of these things to happen, it would be very dangerous for democracy. Like, for instance, having a second slate of electors go that just throws everything into confusion and sends it to Congress on January 6th. So, I mean, obviously we haven't had December 14th yet, so things could change, but we're not seeing that happen. And that's really good. It's really great to see judges standing up for the rule of law as well, because it shows how close those things can happen to where it could go the other direction.
Yeah, and the assistant to the Georgia Secretary of State, his name was Gabriel Sterling. That was the video that was making the rounds. You know, where he was just talking about, like, you know, basically these election officials are like, look, enough of this. People's lives are being threatened. People's families are being threatened, because I know that a lot of people don't want to hear it, and they're probably not the ones watching the show, but their lives are being threatened because they don't want to steal the election in favor of President Trump. And that just goes back to, like, again, how is this the guy that you want to undo everything for? You know, I think a lot of people know what Parler is. It's this app that was supposed to replace Twitter for conservatives. And I had one. I literally had one post on it ever. And I had to take it off my phone, because, like, it just normalized too much insanity. And I don't mean just crazy conspiracies. No, it's like a lot of what I saw on there from people that I sort of tangentially know from work and things, just like, well, no, we have to institute martial law, and then we're going to have the military oversee a brand new election. But it's just like, well, this is the only solution. And you know, you had Flynn say that, you know, thanks for the pardon. And because of that, let me just say that this is a good time for you to invoke martial law, which I don't know that has it ever happened? Has the president ever declared martial law? I mean,
what would that do in the case of election fraud? What would how would martial law help? What are they reasoning?
I mean, what they're saying is that it's basically like, you know, somebody else used this comparison, but it's like the movie about the Somali pirates. You know, the guy who says, "I'm the captain now." That's basically what that is. So that's basically like, I'm the one with all the guns. So I know I'm already in charge, but I'm going to stay in charge. And you basically don't have to. I don't know. You could obviously, I always wish that Chelsea was here, but she could kind of boil it down what it means. But it's just you're throwing out the whole country if you do that, especially if you then like, well, I didn't like the way the election went, so we're going to have to vote again. And I think that it's so much like the word dangerous isn't enough. It's just disappointing that so many people feel like, well, this is what we can do. And, the right is always so quick to point out, like, look, Ben Shapiro has a great phrase that I think it's tagged at the top of it's pinned at the top of his Twitter still, that facts don't care about your feelings. It's a great statement. Facts don't care about your feelings, even if you're the president of the United States. The facts are that you, as Jim Carrey pointed out, are a loser to the tune of 7 million votes and also to the tune of 60 some odd electoral votes. So you are a loser. You have lost
70 something.
You're right.
Yeah.
Math never a strong suit. So, and it's just like the facts are that you didn't win. And like I said, I do believe he understands that. He doesn't like it. Definitely doesn't like it. But I think that he just doesn't think. He's just basically, look, there's a part of him that's like, oh, hey, wow, the Supreme Court actually listened. He's not gonna be disappointed if they overturn the election. But the fact that there are people who believe it, and again, it's like you were saying before, Scott, it's like you don't feel bad for people who believe the president that they voted for, who they feel like is the right person to lead the country for 4 years. If he's giving you information, you're like, well, yeah, this is my guy, of course. It's like if you root for a team with a really bad coach. You're like, yeah, but I think he's going to get it together because we want him to. It's like, so I don't know. It's I guess that it shows you how easy it would be to do if everyone you surrounded yourself with wasn't inept or borderline crazy. I mean,
that's exactly what I've said to people is like, now the blueprint is out there to what's going to happen next time when a president actually is not as lazy as Donald Trump and actually surrounds himself with some competent people, because you've seen how many people have fallen for this, and you've seen it around the world too, about how fascism starts and everything. And I've said this, that Republicans should be on board to nip this in the bud as well, because who's to say it's not going to be a Democrat next time that's just going to be smart enough and surrounded by smart enough people and basically take us down a road of fascism right in front of our eyes. And we've seen this as people have become enamored by Donald Trump. You've seen this in the past where they've said, yes, we wish he could be a dictator. And you see General Flynn basically openly talking about sedition there when you're talking about declaring martial law, which, by the way, has happened multiple times since World War II, mainly for segregation.
I'm not smart, so that's good. I'm glad.
No, but I'm just saying, like, in more of a tight, not in a major way, but to help control, especially for segregation and things in the South. But, to say that, and then to say that the military would oversee a revote, I mean, that is like totalitarian type of BS that's just incredibly dangerous. So the scary thing is, and that's why I really think that Congress should really take a hard look at this and realize that we have become very close to going down a very dark path in this country. And we are just fortunate enough that, like you said, he was surrounded by incompetent fools, and that he was too lazy to actually really use that in the right way to be or the wrong way, I guess you could say, as a dictator, and really take things to a place that would be really bad for America. So we should be grateful for that, but we shouldn't just let it go. And we shouldn't just go back and let, things go back to normal without fixing some of these major issues.
Look, I don't know anyone on the left who feels, just hypothetically, if in 2024, Biden, or there are people who feel like, Kamala Harris will be president by then, but whatever, that, the Democrat losing in 2024, I mean, it's a lot of things could happen in that long a period of time, but I can't imagine the people that I know that, just actively feeling like, well, clearly we have to overturn this. Like, I don't think that they would proudly stand by as lawsuits were filed and, you disparaging comments made against people in your own party. I don't know. I mean, it's too much of a hypothetical, I guess, to really try and figure out. But I don't know. I mean, Tamra, how would you feel if the election results went the way that you didn't want in 2024, but then Biden, Harris, whomever spends a month saying that no, this isn't what really happened, and trying to prove otherwise? And look, if there had been evidence, it's one thing, but with no evidence, I mean, is that something that you feel like, oh, I can support this because this is the person that I checked off with my little magic pen on the ballot?
Yeah, I mean, I think the comparison has been made a lot in 2016 with the Russian election interference, and how Democrats felt that is Trump won because of Russian election interference, but that didn't have a lot of legs because of the fact that Hillary conceded and made a concession speech, and everything moved forward without a democratic major player claiming
Right.
a certain level of fraud. And so I don't know what would happen if 2024, if let's say a Democrat loses, and then the presidential candidate and vice president are claiming fraud. Chances are I would believe it, and in the studies of the 70% of Republicans that believe that fraud, there was an element to that is psychology, which is you believe what you want to believe. So, to a degree, you don't want to examine whether or not there's evidence because you want to believe that your candidate unfairly lost. So I think the 70% of Republicans that are saying that they think fraud, I don't think it's necessarily looking at a square and insisting that it's a circle. It's that, I'm not going to look at this square because it might be a circle and I don't want to know. I just want to claim that fraud was involved. And I could see the same thing happening if a Democratic presidential and vice presidential candidate said that. I myself might
Yeah, no,
fall
I
in
see what
line.
you're. Yeah, I mean, if they're actually going out there and saying it, and yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, if they felt that it was credible, I mean, obviously in 2016 you had a sitting president who was a Democrat. You could have gone to some efforts, but reportedly President Obama is the one who called Hillary Clinton, and the key to all of this is what you said, Tamara, is that she conceded. And people on the right are like, oh, but they spent 4 years with hearings and talking about Russian collusion and all that. It's like, well, yeah, but they didn't try to overturn the votes.
And he was at the White House 2 days later. Donald Trump was at the White House on November 10th. Yeah. And, obviously Trump is like, I'm not inviting him to the White House. I'm not going to concede. I mean, so that's the big difference. So again, it's like saying, like Tamara, to your point earlier about, how we're all on each side are all in for our candidates and everything. But you see, like you said, a huge difference with the way Donald Trump was handled it, as opposed to, like you said, Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton went out the very next day and conceded. And the fact was she would have had more of an argument than anyone, just coming in the fact, like, all those votes were so razor thin in those 3 states. She could have very easily gone and said, I want to, this has been the blue wall since 1988, 1992. I want to have a recount of every single state, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, because they were 10, 15,000 votes difference, as compared to what, and she'd won the popular vote, as compared to Donald Trump, who has lost the popular vote by 7 million, by the most of anybody beating an incumbent, and he lost Michigan by over 150,000 votes. He lost Pennsylvania by over 80,000. And the only one that was narrow, and I was through, was Wisconsin, but it was still twice as much as what he won in 2016. So they're not even remotely as close either. So it's just absolute idiocy to see that this is even going on to this point and even trying to compare it to what happened, because Democrats did have legitimate questions with him and the Russian meddling. They were legitimate, and impeachment is not overturning an election. It is a punishment for not living up to your job and doing your job of the Constitution. It has nothing to do with an election. And it's not like when Donald Trump was to be removed from the Senate, you're not getting Hillary Clinton as president, you're getting Mike Pence. So again, to even talk about overturning stuff, is clueless and stupid when you don't understand what impeachment is and any of the other stuff. So you can't even compare the difference at all.
Yeah, I also wonder, do they think that they kind of used up the impeachment a little early? Because I feel like there's a lot more that you could, a stronger case to be made for it now, just the last month, it's just like, well, this is clearly, and you're talking about Pence, and I did want to bring up, he spoke earlier today and he wore a mask, and you haven't seen a lot of Mike Pence lately. He's not on those fundraising emails that come out. It's not the Trump Pence logo. And, as soon as anybody ever asks any questions, they're always quick to say like, oh, no, obviously he stands by the president. But it's very clear that he definitely is looking for a future after January 20th. And he's like, I can't be tied to this guy at this point,
Yeah. If there was any other Republican that ran instead of Trump, or if it were any other Republican incumbent instead of Trump that lost, there would not be these claims. This is just a very specific instance of somebody who is a child and mentally unstable. So I don't think that this is a matter of this is how Republicans behave. It's a matter of this is how this one sick individual behaves, which is in turn tainting the entire Republican Party.
Andreas very vocal today, pointing out any losing GOP candidate, mentioning Romney, and McCain did have a great concession speech in 2008. He always really handled everything very well. There people highlight that moment when he was doing the town hall, and the woman who said that doesn't like Obama because he's a Muslim, or whatever, and the way he handled that. There's a way to lose with dignity, and that is certainly not on display here. What were you going to say, Scott?
And I was just going to say, the last time that we saw a Republican incumbent lose re-election, George H.W. Bush also went out that night and gave a really great concession speech and was basically like, yes, it didn't turn out the way we wanted, but we're going to support our new president. Again, and left that amazing note in the desk when Clinton came in. He could have been, a complete asshole about that, and he was not. And coincidentally, that's the last time that Georgia voted for a Democrat and Florida voted for the losing presidential candidate was in 1992 as well. So there's some similarities there. Just kind of looking back, last time an incumbent lost re-election. So you can see the difference in how a concession speech could be handled. And the fact that Donald Trump likely will never even give one just shows again, how unfit he is for any type of office. And the fact is that he could easily come back in 2024 and be a thorn in the side of Republicans. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic. Like you said, Mike Pence is trying to separate himself, although he'll never be able to, because he's completely tied in with Trump, whether he pretends to or not, to the bitter end. And running the COVID task force and seeing what a joke that is right now is going to be on him. So I don't think he really has a future. But, how is that going to play out, and who's going to jostle for what when you get to 2024, knowing that Donald Trump could theoretically run for office again? And to your point, Christian, it would have made sense if they did impeach him now, because if he's impeached and removed from office, Trump is barred from running for election again if he's removed from office. So if Republicans had a spine and really wanted to get rid of him for good, they would impeach him and remove him right now, and then he would not have the ability to run again in 2024. Of course, they won't do that. But the thing is that's the way of being able to get rid of him for good, and then hope that you never have to deal. I mean, obviously, you're still going to deal with him on Twitter and his following, but he won't be able to run again. Where now you have the specter of him being this ghost in the background for the next 4 years and potentially trying to run and split the Republican Party up in 24. So it will be fascinating to see how that would play out. But of course, a long time to go, and who knows if he's in prison or what by then.
Well, and Tamra, tell me what you think of this. I'm thinking that by January 27th, at Real Donald Trump will be kicked off Twitter permanently, because he's enjoyed some protections in the last 4 years. And they just put all these disclaimers on there. But I think it's going to get even crazier. And they're going to be like, you violated the terms. You do it enough times. And it's like, oh, we don't care. Just go away. I don't know.
I don't think so, because it's good, because he's good for their business, and putting the disclaimer is giving Twitter integrity, but kicking him off would just be completely bad for business. So I don't think they would do that.
I'll tell you that if he goes over to Parler, it's not going to help.
Now with Parler, you said you put a post, and does that mean did you join it? Did you post something? Is that
no, I've had an account there for a long time, but I didn't use it I just sort of like followed people, and their retweets are called echoes, and so I would see a lot of echoes from people that I like, and what they were echoing was usually something where I'm like, oh, this is beyond crazy.
See, I'm just curious what's going to happen. I didn't even realize that Parler had been around for that long. I thought it was a brand new platform, but
well, that's part of their problem, by the way.
But
not brand new.
But I wonder how when you just get people conspiracy theory minded, they're just going to Parler's going to eat itself, because these people who have to latch onto fringe beliefs, once you're put into a room with everybody who believes the same thing that you do, you're still going to search out those fringe beliefs. So it's going to just be this like implosion of insanity that I'm very curious what will happen in a year with Parler. Yeah, no,
I think it'll be even tougher to navigate. In our last few minutes, there's a couple things I want to talk about. Where we've already talked about pardons. There's this idea of President Trump preemptively pardoning a lot of his staff and his children with the idea of protecting them from future investigations and future charges. I'm pretty sure it doesn't really work that way. You can't be pardoned from something that you haven't been charged with yet. And I know as much as he wants to pardon himself, everybody feels like he can't. Tamra, my thinking is if you're offering up a pardon, if you're asking for a pardon, it really gives the impression that you've done something wrong that maybe we should take a look at. Do you think that doesn't seem like a huge jump in logic, that you need to be pardoned from having done something?
That's the don't look in my closet way of doing things. There's nothing in my closet that you need to look at. Don't take the black light into the trunk of my car. No, of course.
So do you think that that it's going to be a point of contention when Don Jr. and Ivanka get pardons, but Tiffany and Eric don't? Because even when it comes to pardons, he's clearly got favorites.
That would be amazing. Chef's kiss to that.
But I mean, Tiffany, Tiffany is Marla Maples' daughter, so he really doesn't count her.
She hasn't done any, like, what has she done related to him that could be pardoned, that would require pardoning?
That's not for us.
That's what I was gonna say. What have they all done? Because again, if you're saying you're giving preemptive pardons, then they're clearly guilty. Accepting a pardon means you're accepting guilt. You're
saying they were pardoned? I mean,
no. He's saying that it's not even he's saying. There's this idea that he's going to pardon them in order to protect them, and it's not just his kids. It is Giuliani, and it's some other people.
You're accepting guilt might also by accepting the pardon. You're accepting guilt. You're saying you're guilty, and like you said, if there is no guilt or anything to do, then why would you be pardoning anybody? That's the thing. So yeah, like you said earlier, Tamra, it's like, okay, what did Tiffany do? We don't know. Maybe she has done things that we don't know about. But the fact of the matter is, if you're doing that, then you are basically admitting that there has been some, there's some guilt involved. And that's another thing that Congress should be looking at too, the unlimited power to pardon. Maybe should be looked at again too from a president. And, if he tries to pardon himself, nobody's ever done that. And that's basically admitting you're above the law. So how can someone just pardon themselves? I don't think will stand. So as I've said to you guys, I think I wouldn't put it past him to walk away at 9 a.m. on January 20th and have Pence pardon him if, he can, because then he knows that that obviously would be able to hold up in court rather than him self-pardoning and then taking the risk that, doesn't hold up and then he's open to things. So to me, that's what he would do in the last minute bid, would just walk away an hour or two and then go to his rally. for 2024.
What if he lets Pence be president for 3 hours and then Pence invokes martial law and then he hunkers down and he refuses to turn over the White House? You know, the guy who was president for 3 hours is like, oh no, I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Mother says that I'm the president, so I get to stay the president.
Yeah, I just got this job. I'm here for 4 years now.
Yeah, right, exactly. I think that it continues to be interesting. Where I wanted to end is looking ahead a little bit to President-elect Biden, who he and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris spoke with Jake Tapper last night. And in that conversation, they talked about, President-elect Biden. It's hard to keep the titles when, he's had both. He said that, he obviously he doesn't need President Trump to attend the inauguration. He just think it sends a better image. He will not be there. He definitely will not be there. That's
the other reason why I said if he resigned, then that gives him an even easier out by being like, well, I'm no longer president.
I'm not the president. I don't need to be there. I be there.
So
yeah, I didn't get a ticket.
That was the whole other reason why I thought he might do that as well, because that gives him an out to not even have to be there because he's no longer technically president. Yeah. So yeah,
good point.
Well, I don't think he'd make it to January 20th. I think January 1st. It's like they always say he goes down to Mar-a-Lago for Christmas, and he's just like, I just don't want to go back up. Just send my stuff down. It's like a breakup. It's like, just, you know what? I'm going to send one of my buddies to pick everything up. I'm staying here with at the new place. So, and some of the other things that were talked about in that is. President Biden, then President Biden, future President Biden, President-elect Biden, I believe the correct term, is advocating for people to wear a mask for 100 days. He has said, President Obama has said, and former President George W. Bush have all said that they would receive a vaccine when the FDA says it's ready. They're willing to do it on camera. And I think that, if the three former presidents were willing to do that, I think that's a nice thing. I think that maybe they should all step aside and let Jimmy Carter go first because he's 96. Yep. But maybe he's like, I'm not even going outside to get a vaccine. I don't go anywhere. I built myself a house and there's no doors, so I stay here so that I don't get germs. But obviously, that's kind of the reality. And I think if President Trump were throwing his hissy fit in a, not in a pandemic, not as you're seeing more and more people dying, and not when it is clearly, I believe the entire Trump family all told us that that COVID was going to go away on November 4th. And that, as I said, is in a past show, it was just their dad that is going to go away on November 4th. And except he hasn't, but it's continuing to be a problem. And Biden has already asked Dr. Fauci to be an advisor. And I think that's the right call. But what are your concerns and what are your thoughts just looking forward, Tamra, as you look this feeling that like, okay, well, now we're going to have some grown-ups take care of a grown-up problem. And yes, there's the effectiveness of Operation Warp Speed or Project Warp Speed. There is benefit to what was done by this administration to get these vaccines ready, but now the next administration is the one who's going to have to administer them. So what are your thoughts for sort of looking at this first 100 days of Biden's presidency, where he's going to advocate for people wearing a mask, that sort of thing?
Well, I'm going to back up even more immediate than that. Is what my biggest concern is that if a new stimulus package for Americans who are still unemployed or have small business owners that are tanking and things like that, if a stimulus package is agreed upon between the House and the Senate, it still has to be signed by Trump, and I feel like he won't do it. It'll be his final FU to the American people.
No.
That's what my concern is. So, obviously not, that's how he would frame it, FU to the American people, I'm out, but he would say like, I'm not signing this because of whatever he would come up with. I think that is, that's more my concern is as far as something to look out for immediately. Once Biden takes office, you know, I don't know. I don't know if having an administration setting an example of mask wearing and proper behavior is really going to make a difference to the people who were so anti any of that, anti-science.
Yeah, you know, it's a great point, and some of those people are probably going to be the same ones who don't want to get the vaccine, even though, you know, their guy's the one who rushed it through to.
I mean, there's already the conspiracy that the vaccine mutates your DNA. Isn't that what they're saying right now? So already people are saying, I'm not getting this vaccine because it will mutate my DNA.
Yeah, well, I think I think I saw a poll that like 40% of people were like, "Yeah, I'm not getting it," and I've already said on record that I think there's 3 of them, and I will get all 3 of them on the first day if they'll let me. So, except it wouldn't be the first day. There's I think it was in the New York Times. There's an article where you can kind of input where you live, your age group, and I've got I don't know, like a few 100 million people ahead of me, but then just
the thing, I did it too, and then I put in a younger age. I was like, let me just put in like a random age in there, and then they were ahead of me in line when I did it. I was like, why am I getting it later than someone who's like 24? Are they more valuable in the economy?
They're more valuable. They're more valuable to the workforce, Scott.
You know, I was like,
younger and stronger. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was like, wow, I was like number 268 million or something.
Yeah.
And they were like 124. I was like, how did that happen? So I did tool around with that yesterday too. I thought it was kind of fun, but I was also really depressed that I was way in the back.
Yeah. I haven't done it, but I assume I'm going to be like I'm going to be the 10th to the last person.
It would be great if it actually came up and it said, Tamra Brown, you will be the last person in California.
In the country.
Everyone in California will get it before you.
Well, I was basically the last in LA County too. It was like, 8 million will get it ahead of you. I was like, I'm like
there were a lot of people getting it before me. That's true. So yeah, I mean, I guess that, and look, you know, we're all in Southern California, and there's a confusing order that is not in place yet, but has been announced. And depending on which media source you rely on, you might have thought it was already in place. You might have thought you weren't allowed to go out for a walk. You know, depends on. But I guess we'll see that somewhere probably within the next week. I guess when I guess intensive care availability is 15%. Right now it's at 20%. So it's not a problem that's going away. And I always wanted the deniers to be right. I would have loved for the fact that, like, you know, once the weather got warm in May and June, that just nobody had it anymore. And, you know, we all could go to concerts and baseball games again this past summer. You know, I wanted that to be right. I was just like, oh man, what if they know better than science? How great would that be? I would have been fine with that. But that's not the reality that we're dealing with. And the right were quick to disparage Biden for talking about the dark winter, but I mean, Dr. Fauci's even like 100 days of wearing a mask. That's not enough. You're gonna need a little bit more than 100 days. So on that final issue, Scott, what are your thoughts about just sort of the change in approach? And I don't think it'll be too little, too late, but it's definitely going to be late to make that shift in how we approach this, right?
Oh, it's going to be way too late. And to Tamara's point, it's the same thing. Like, people that are not going to wear masks are going to be even more defiant. To have somebody, you know, oh, you can't tell me what to do. And to your point, Christian, you're just talking about the confusion of all these different orders and rules. Even out here in California, which I've said to many people, it's just not been done well at all. Because, you know, LA City sent out something that was basically the same exact thing that the county had sent out, but it was like, oh, stop everything, cancel everything. But it really didn't change. And then you still change all the rules too. Like, now the state's saying, okay, we're gonna have a more tougher stay-at-home order in 5 different regions now of the state. And like you said, if you hit 15%, that's when it's triggered. It's like they just keep changing everything all the time, that even people who support having, you know, these rules in place to protect everybody and wearing masks, and people that have bought in, are losing their patients even here in California now, because it's just so arbitrary And I understand it's very hard to balance the line of the economy versus health, but it's confusing when kids can't go play in the playground, but adults can go play golf or tennis or pickleball or go hiking or go, until you hit 15% and still get a massage and get a haircut indoors. So it's just, and go to the mall. So it's just very arbitrary, and the rules keep shifting and changing, and you have curfews and then you don't, and you have outside dining and you don't. So I think everyone's just getting to the point where it's really hard to buy in on both sides. And then you're not going to get many people that are just going to come in and say, great, now that Joe Biden says wear a mask, I'm going to wear a mask.
Yeah.
As Tamra's point, it's just not going to happen. But I think modeling that behavior is a good step in the right direction. And if someone like a Mitch McConnell, who also was saying, like, I'm not following Trump's thing here, if he is able to step up a little bit and he's wearing a mask, he doesn't even have to say anything. But if you see some Republican leaders start wearing masks when they're doing press conferences and other things, that will be more of a signal to some of those more moderate Republicans that might have been on the fence in the mask wearing to join in. So even though you won't really get a lot of people necessarily that don't already believe in it, if other leaders on both sides can sort of model that behavior, it will make a difference. But there's not much you can do. You can't make it a federal law really and say, if you don't wear a mask, you're arrested. So
I think there's it's just a lack of consistency, and we're just talking about our state. The UK just recently ended basically a month-long shutdown, and they have a obviously much smaller landmass, a lot less population, and I believe they also gave people money for the 4 weeks. The federally funded, some kind of bailout program. So you can do it, but it's that's the level that it has to happen at. And that we're collectively not willing to do it, because you have places that still feel that they weren't as hard hit, and so it's hard to get 50 states to agree to that. And I think it is a unique situation. It's very easy for Russia to say, like, yeah, you're all going to get this vaccine. And you're like, well, I guess we got to do it because we know what happens if we don't. It's like, do you want a needle in your arm or a bullet in your head? Oh, we'll take the needle. Thank you, Mr. Putin. So I think that, I think that having the vaccine is going to be helpful to people who get it. But it doesn't mean that the problem's going to go away. You just have this confidence that it's at least a priority, and people will start handling it, and it'll get better. But I mean, you've heard from doctors who have had people on their deathbed who are still believe that they're like, I can't be dying because this is fake. This isn't real. People who literally with their last breath don't think it's real. So I think that that is an incredible challenge moving forward. Regardless of who the president was going to be. But I think there are some out there who are probably relieved that it's not the guy who's still holding a lot of Christmas parties indoor without masks on. Some of us get nervous. I literally rushed out last night to get a haircut because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get one today. I think I would have been able to today. I don't know about tomorrow. But I
think it'll be Sunday, is what I've heard, if it goes into effect in this region. So I was doing the same thing. I'm like, do I go get a haircut again? Do I? Tomorrow?
Because it's not like you can get like the outdoor haircut. It's like after they say they're going to close down entirely. So there's a lot to keep an eye on, and it's some of it's exhausting. I'm not even talking about like the stuff with the virus is exhausting in a different way. Just the stuff with President Trump, where it's just like, just enough already. It's like, that was the thing I was going to bring up in the conversation with Jake Tapper. President-elect Biden mentioned that he's heard from a number of prominent sitting senators, I believe those are exact words he used, that congratulated him. And he's even understanding, because he's like, I get why they can't say it publicly. They don't want the headache, So, I mean, look, that's encouraging, because look, even if the Republicans win both of the Georgia runoffs, so they would have 52 at that point, right, Scott?
Right.
So it won't take much for Democrats to get things passed. You can probably, I think for the right issue, you can count on Mitt Romney, and then you have a couple of the others that you look to. So I don't know. We'll see what he's able to get through, and they'll just see, if it goes the other way, then it could take a long time to get some of these appointments, these nominees that Biden has. But we'll be around to talk about all of that. We'll also we will be back for one more show in 2020. We'll be back on Tuesday, December 15th, which is the day after the Electoral College has their winter formal, as it were. And we'll be, I believe, at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I'll let you know if that changes, 2 o'clock Eastern. That'll be our last show for 2020. And hopefully by 2021, we'll have a new name. And boy, if that new name is the Pence Report, that's going to be fascinating. So, well, Tamra's like, I'm not laughing at that. But so that is when we'll be back. And I feel like there'll be a lot to talk about that day, one way or the other. And we appreciate everybody who continues to tune in. And thank you to Andreas Froby from Sweden. Always appreciated when we hear from him. And I feel like Storage Yard Resident will catch the archive version and leave a comment in there. Tamra, where can people catch your TikToks?
Well, you can find me on TikTok at Hey Tamra.
And Scott, where can people find you on TikTok?
I'm too old, so I've been barred. Yeah. But you can find me right over there, or no, right here.
Yeah. It's like how when Facebook first started, you had to have a .edu email address. Yeah. I looked at TikTok and they're like, well, you're too old, you can't sign up. And so SMan80, that's where you can find Scott, and you can find me at Christian DMZ here on Twitter. Look at this! Literally at the last second, look who showed up. There's our friend Storage Yard Resident. Good to see you. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Christian DMZ. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're on the Blackcast YouTube channel. So subscribe, and you can see shows like this one, the Star Trek Discovery after show, the Mandalorian after show, Marvel movie talk, and of course, the Blackcast, BLADTCAST is where you find all of that. Thanks to Tamra and to Scott and to all of you. We'll see everybody on the 15th.